Welcome, everyone, to It Tastes Different Gaming Podcast, the podcast with 4 different flavors coming from 4 different gamers. I am your host, Patrick Smith, and I want to welcome my co-hosts, Nick Irwin, Shane Eisterhold, and Russell Rowe.
Hey, Patrick. Where can they find us?
Well, the first place you should check out is our website at ittastesdifferent.com. This is the place where you can subscribe to all of our streams and connect to all of our social media sites. You can also find us on Facebook at It Tastes Different. We're also on Instagram at It Tastes Different PC. And then last but not least is Twitter, where you can find us at It Tastes Diff. What's on the menu for today? We choked down a basket of day-old garlic bread with Mafia 2 Definitive Edition. The Definitive Edition came out basically September 25th of 2020. It was a remake of the original Mafia 2 game. Basically, it was developed by Hangar 13 and published by 2K Games. It's basically set within a fictional city of Lost Haven, which is based off Chicago. It's a Mafia game. It's based off of the Mafia. And the game starts out in the 1930s and progresses all the way into the 50s. Let's see here. Basically, I don't know. It's a typical Mafia game. I kind of want to see what you guys all think about it. Let's start out with Shane. What'd you think of the definitive edition of this game?
I don't think they really did much. It's a graphical improvement, yes, as far as the definitive edition. But other than that, it's the same game. But I will testify that they did a lot of things better on the mechanics and such for this one than they did on the original Mafia. I think the driving controls were like the most atrocious things on the first one. They really got that much better on this one, in my opinion. I think it's more akin to Grand Theft Auto setup, which isn't necessarily the greatest thing, but a million times better than what it was. As far as the overall game, I've enjoyed it. I like the characters better on this one. It's a little more generic, but they're done better, I think. I don't know if that comes out right. They definitely have the mob mentality from the movies that you always watched, but excellent voice acting for most of them, I thought. The gunplay was much better. The overall story so far, I've only got to chapter 10, I think, give or take. It has been really interesting, but still not really like a big motivator to really push to play it. I don't think there's anything definitive about it, really. I think if you're going to say remaster, definitive edition, they should have done more to it. But that's been a problem with the last remaster they did for Mafia 1 as well. They said it was, XYZ, it barely had X. It's kind of a rip-off, but we got it at a good deal because we got all 3, which we're going to play, the third one at some point. But overall, it's a better game than 1, but it's nothing I would rush out to play at a full price. But for what you can get it at right now, it's worth a play. What about you, Russ?
It's another standard kind of game from this series. Some of the things that are kind of interesting about the game is when you think about it, number one, to say it's an old game. I mean, it's 2010. It's not super old. But then again, as quickly as these kind of things upgrade, as quickly as we get consoles out and the way that PCs can upgrade, it still was a pretty, decent game. The game looked good. The thing is that like the mechanics, though for the day, we're kind of cutting edge that being in cover, coming out of cover, shooting, that kind of gameplay, that type of thing was kind of like, kind of state of the art back in the day. It's kind of dated. There were a lot of bugs in the game still that were in the original version. I'm going to let kind of the others expand on that a little bit more. I just wanted to make sure that was clear that it's very odd that we have these games and they're known bugs in the day and they don't take the time to fix them in a new version. It's almost to me a slap in the face as a consumer, but it is what it is. I'm not going to get too far into that. I just want to say that was surely a frustration. The story is another generic storyline. You guys know I love these kind of movies. Godfather is probably top 5 for me of all time. Those type of movies, I love them. So, that's part of what I enjoy out of here, out of these Mafia 2s, is the storyline, and it's okay. The storyline is pretty decent. The definitely don't hold back on the curse words and stuff like that. So this is definitely a mature game. Audience, if you do have children playing or something like that, this is a very mature game. Within the first 30 minutes of the game, definitely want to know that it is an M rating. Other than that, it's just a run of the mill game. We want to get excited about something being remastered, but like you said, cleaned up the graphics a little bit. It is an upgrade from Mafia 1, obviously, being that it just itself, with the mechanics and stuff like that, but definitely nothing to go too far into, as in like go out of your way to buy this game. It's solid. It's kind of a good memorance game, but it's just frustrating that, again, it is a basic remaster. I don't know if we need to start giving these games tiers, even within the remaster, remaster level 1, remaster level 2, remake level 1, remake level 2. And because I don't know what we're to start expecting from the word remaster or remake anymore. But anyway, I'll stop my rant and continue to add more as we go. But let's go to Nick. Nick, what do you think, man? What do you think? These games kind of are a dime a dozen for you. So I was just curious about what you think.
Yeah, Mafia 2 it's okay. It's definitely better than the first one, and like you guys have said, the gunplay and the vehicle driving portions and driving around town is definitely a lot better than it was in the first game. There's a lot more to do in the city than in the first game. You have different areas that you can go to where you can get different outfits. You can buy guns, you can upgrade your cars, stuff like that. You can even destroy your cars for money or any cars that you get on the street. There's lock picking when you go to steal a car, or you can bash in a window. I think the first one only had just being able to bash in a window, but this one you can lock pick, which is a little bit more secretive, so you don't get the police on you. So there is a lot more to do in the world. And that's a good thing in regards to how Mafia 1 was compared to this one. For the definitive portion of it, like Shane said, the only real thing that I saw that I noticed was just an upgrade to the graphics in the sense of maybe higher resolutions and stuff. It didn't look like the reworking that they did with Mafia 1, where you could definitely tell it was a high graphical upgrade. This one just seemed like pretty much the same graphics as they had in Mafia 2, the original, which, like Russ said, it's not that super old of a game, but they just upped the resolution, maybe did some kind of polish on textures and things like that.
Little spit shine.
Yeah, a little spit shine. They shined up the turd a little bit. So that was pretty much what they did with this game. As far as the fundamentals of this game, it's pretty much the same as it was, from my understanding, because I never played any of the Mafia games, but from my understanding, it's pretty much what it was in Mafia 2, the original, besides a little shine to the graphics. So, whether that's good or bad, I don't know. I mean, that game maybe didn't really need anything done to it, per se. So, just a little upgrade in the graphic area, and then it's good to go. Like Russ said, it does have bugs. There are some things that I did run into that seemed like, I don't know if they were bugs that were from the original Mafia 2. One of the biggest ones that even Patrick may hit on as well is the graphical artifacting bug, where like sometimes you would play the game and you would get this weird just garbage image that would pop up on the screen from nowhere, and it would pretty much take over the entire screen, and it would just come and go as it wanted to. One time I had it come and go as it wanted, and once it shows up on the screen, you pretty much can't see anything. It takes over the entire image. One time that would just kind of pop in and out whenever it felt like it, and then there was another time where it would only come up when I ran into something. So if I was driving a car and I ran into another car, then it would just show up. Or if I ran into a pole or something like that, then it would show up. But so that's really weird. Other than that, that's the only big bug I think personally that I ran into. There might have been some smaller ones, but I can't think of them off the top of my head because that was the biggest annoying bug that I ran into. Like Patrick said at the beginning, it does go to it ended up going, pretty early on in the story, a few chapters in, it does go over to the 1950s, which is, I think, a lot better. We got better cars, faster cars, and definitely better music than the 1930s music. So, it was, especially for me, when I grew up, my dad listened to a lot of the 1950s and 60s type music, so, all that music was familiar to me. Unlike Mafia 1, which I pretty much turned off the radio every single time I got in a car, and Mafia 2, especially when it transitions to the 1950s, there were a lot of songs that I would sit there and listen to as I drove to wherever I was going. So, some good and some bad. I think once we get the initial idea of what Patrick thinks here in a second, we'll probably get into more of the story stuff and what we think about the story. Pat, what did you think of this game? How did you like Mafia 2?
How could a remaster be worse? That's what I'm going to say about this. The game is buggy. As Nick said, the graphical artifacting is horrible. Like, in many scenes where you go through and, a perfect example is, I'll just give an example of when you're fighting in the brewery, you kind of go your way up to the top of the brewery, you drive your way up through, and then you have to walk your way back down. Well, when you're driving up to there's artifacting of where you could see the scene that's about to happen when the place catches on fire and starts falling apart before you even get to the top. I don't know how a remaster can make a game worse as far as like bugs, but the bugs in this game were galore. Lots of artifacting, lots of light reflecting issues. One of the things that drove me the nuts the most was the eyes, and I don't know if you guys caught it, but the eyes, they broke the eyes somehow. Characters would be looking left, and their eyes would be like deadpan to the left or the right, and you're like, they're supposed to be looking at you and talking to you, but their eyes are like staring off into the right or something, Especially, Nick, you may have noticed it when you played the scene with Leo, where he's driving you away in the car towards the end of the game, and he's talking to you, but the whole time his eyes are like stuck looking left, and he's looking dead at you. Or he's got his head cocked a little bit to the right, and his eyes are like deadlocked in a direction. The eyes really drove me nuts. I found if you drove in a convertible car when you were running around with like your companion or whatever, their heads would spin like it was a freaking Exorcist movie.
See, I never experienced any of that.
Did you drive in a convertible car when you were riding with? I forgot his name already.
Leo?
No, not with Leo. With
Joe, right? With Joe?
With Joe, yeah, with Joe. When you're driving in the car with Joe, you're driving, and if his head is always stuck in like an up-looking position when you're in the car. He's not like looking forward. He's always looking up. And then it seems like they have the head fixated on something in front of you, and if you pass it, their head stays with it. So it looks like their head swivels around, and then it snaps back forward, so it constantly does like the spinning thing. And I also noticed the same thing if you weren't the one driving. So there's a few scenes where you just get to ride, and if you're riding and you're looking in the back of the car, you can see their head spinning. I was like, this is bad. So I don't know how a remaster can make a game worse, but it seems like the bugs and glitches got worse, and they didn't care. They were just like, whatever, throw this out the door, it's good to go. It has a slight polish on it to me, but I don't think it looks that much better. And I'm a graphics snob. I don't think it looks that much better than the 2010 version. Maybe I was just too fixated on all the bugs. But I think this is a very poorly done remaster. Looks slightly better. Lots of graphical glitches and flickering. It's bad overall. The driving, I think, improved over one. That's a bonus for me. I think the driving in this one, especially as Nick said, when it got in the 50s, you got better cars and upgrade your cars. The music was better. I like the music a lot more, especially when you got into the 50s. I would do the same thing, change the station to the one I wanted and not turn it off.
I just turned it off because I hated the damn music.
But I will say the gunplay is just as bad as the first. It didn't seem to get any better. If anything, it seemed to get worse. It seemed like you could be out of cover even a less amount of time before you would just get drilled. So it seems like the game made a turn for the worse for me. As far as what I overall thought of the game, it was a little bit of a push for me to finish the game, complete it. I did finish it and complete it. But I didn't go back for the extra stuff. I didn't go back to get all the trophies and stuff like that. I didn't go back to get all those. So I didn't even go back and get all the collectibles.
Yeah, I didn't run into any I don't remember running into any other bugs besides the artifacting bug. I don't remember the eye thing either. I didn't get any convertible, so I didn't get to experience that part.
Did you get any rubber banding? I had a lot of rubber banding.
I didn't have any rubber banding either. I think the only bug that I ran into personally was just the artifact bug. Other than that, I can't think of any other bugs that I ran into. I think there was one bug that I ran into this one also, now I'm thinking about it, where I had to restart a mission because, and I think you mentioned this in the Mafia 1 one where you did a portion too quickly, and then the game just didn't progress. And I believe there was one mission, I can't think of what the mission is, but one mission where where that happened to me, where I just did it too quickly and then the mission never progressed and I had to restart it. The gunplay for me personally, I think it's better. And some of my things with the gunplay in 1 was like, it was headshots or nothing at all. In this one, I felt like I could do body shots. Like, I would go for headshots mainly, but I felt like I could do body shots and still take an enemy down. Whereas in Mafia 1, I felt like it was headshot or nothing, right? Body shots did nothing. I would either end up dying if I just tried to do body shots the whole time. I didn't go back for the collectibles either, in regards to that. Now, like Russ was saying, it is an M-rated game. You do find Playboy pinups, and they are nude, at least, from the top portion. No bottoms are shown, no that portion is shown in there, but, the top portion they are uncovered, and they are the real playmates for that,
generation,
right.
Well, so I would rather see the breastises than the over-hairy kitties. Yeah, so there was no afros, but and then but I didn't collect all those. I just picked them up when I could, or when I just happened to find them. They are pretty much in, those collectibles are pretty much in plain sight, it seems, of the Playboy ones. They are during a lot of missions, even through hectic times, which seems a little odd that there would just be you're getting, because there were several times where you would find a Playboy where you would be getting shot at, and there's just one sitting on the floor, right? And then, and it's a hectic moment, so you're trying to run through and go to cover and stuff like that, and there's a Playboy where they're like, oh, you can pick that up there, and it's like, that's kind of a weird spot to put it, but I found a lot of them that way. Some of them were hidden and stuff like that, but there's also another collectible, I can't think of what it is.
They're wanted posters.
Yeah, wanted posters. I never found a single one.
Oh, did you?
I found 2.
Yeah, I run into them occasionally. You have to be on the lookout for them because they blend in with the wall or whatever they're just wanted posters, so you don't normally think to go collect a poster on the wall, but they're all over the place.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even know until I beat the game. I didn't even know, because I beat it as well. I didn't even know that was a collectible. I thought it was just the Playboy pinups that were. So after I beat it, I looked at the collectibles list, and I was like, hey, there's another tab here, and then I noticed it was the wanted posters. Like, well, I didn't find a single one of those.
I didn't find Playboys in the corner.
I didn't find a lot of Playboys either. I only found there's probably 30 or 40 Playboy pinups that you can get.
There's a lot.
And I only got 10. So
yeah, I didn't try to look too hard for them either. I've already played. I played Mafia 2 before they did the definitive edition, and we got the definitive edition in the trilogy, the definitive trilogy. So that's the only reason I went back and played it, is because we were going to review it, and it had been quite a few years since I played it, but once we started playing it again, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this game. I remember it. It was okay. It was an okay game. I do think the story was better than 1. It was a little bit more, you have a little bit more control. Like, there is some things that you could do differently in the game, and I don't know how many of you know that, but there's scenes in the game that you could play out differently that affect the game later on, as far as not really, they don't affect the ending, they just affect the way the story basically the story plays out. Like how you I don't know if we want to spoil anything or we talk about the story, but how you basically...
I think with the 2010 release date, It's safe to spoil.
Well, there's a mission in the game where you have to go warn Leo what's about to happen to him. And there's multiple ways to play that story out. There's, you either get caught or you don't get caught, and how you escape, So it's basically...
You get caught?
I did not.
I got caught.
I know. We escaped out the bedroom window with the sheets.
I got caught. I got caught by Henry, and then Henry made a deal, and then we escaped.
Right. No, we escaped out there. We went in and found the sheets, tied them onto the rail, and we escaped out the back window. But yeah, there's and multiple missions have that type of that type of thing, and it changes the way that the story. So in my story, Henry never knew that I helped Leo, so doesn't have that to hold over you.
Well, Henry was a rat, so it didn't matter.
Yeah. He's a rat bastard.
Yeah. But the story, for me, the story was very, as another individual that finished the game, the story was all over the place. And I felt like at the end, they just kind of it was just like, oh, we're done. That's what it felt like to me. Because it felt like there would be more story, and then they were just like, no, this is it. We're done. Story's over.
What's funny is playing Mafia 1 and 2 in close successions, I realized something that I never realized playing the game back in the day. Did you catch it, Nick?
Where you were the people?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was the coolest thing. When I pulled up there, I was like, oh my gosh.
I'm the one that whacked myself from the first game.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if Shane and Russ, have you gotten to that point yet, but, and to spoil things. But basically, at the end of Mafia 1, those two guys show up and kill the main protagonist of Mafia 1. You are the two people. It's you and Joe.
Yep, you and Joe,
You and Joe go whack yourself from the first game.
So you play that mission eventually towards the end. And I was like, when I got to that, I was like, wait, this looks familiar. What's going on? And then he pulled up and I was like, holy crap. I was like, that's a good tie-in. Yeah, that's a good tie-in. I liked it. I like that tie-in.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was in the originally or not. I mean, it probably was. It just, I didn't realize it because there was so much distance and time between the games, but playing them in this quick succession like that, I was like, huh. It almost made me want to go back to the first one and run the last chapter again to see if it really was if they showed you the two guys who
thing. I thought
who
the same
did
thing.
it.
I was trying to think back of who was the two, because they showed them really quickly. The two guys, I'm like, were they them? Was that them? Or were they in the same clothes?
Was it a skinny Italian guy and a fat Italian guy in a Hawaiian shirt?
I know it was a shotgun. I know they did a shotgun, but yeah.
So that was kind of a cool tie-in, and I never realized, and I played both games back in the day, but like I said, there was so much time between 1 and 2 that I never put 2 and 2 together, and then I was like, when I played this one, I'm like, I thought the same thing. I'm like, we're going to go whack a guy who ratted on his family who's under witness protection, and I'm like, are they going to go have me kill myself?
I thought the same thing when they were talking about it in the car. I was like, wait a minute, is this what I think it is? And then as soon as we pulled up there, I was like, it is what I think it is.
I'm out there watering the lawn. I'm seeing my own death. So yeah, that was a pretty neat little tie-in, I will say. But like I said, the Mafia games are okay. I like 2 better than 1, but I thought the story in 2 was much better. Obviously, the driving, the shooting was on par, if not worse, in my opinion. I mean, I find that their combat is a little bit of a detriment to their game. Their story is okay. Their driving got better, but the combat was just bad.
Well, did we swallow 1 better because it felt more remade and because it was older and the graphics update was more visible versus 2 that we had, like you said, maybe just a little spit shine and throw it out there type of thing? Is that why maybe we said, oh, 1 wasn't so bad, even though 1's mechanics were much worse than 2?
Maybe. I felt like they made 2 worse because of all the glitches and issues.
I don't think so. I think the fact that the story was better, in my opinion. I think overall gameplay was a vast improvement. Yeah, there was some. I didn't run into all the garbage you ran into, so I mean I can't speak for that, but I can say just for my playthrough, it's a much better game than 1 overall. I mean, I wouldn't think. I can't think of anything negative on this game if you were to compare it to the first game.
I find that, for me personally, I think the story in 1 was actually better than 2.
Wow.
And because 2's story, having completed it, like I said, it felt like they just ended it. Like they just decided this is where the end is, and it didn't feel like an ending. You kind of, again, to spoil things a little bit, but you begin the Mafia 2 as just nobody. You're coming back from the war, you're a vet, and you get in with Joe, who's your childhood friend who kind of runs with the Mafia, kind of. He's not in the Mafia, but he does errands for those. And then you start going in with him doing that. You go to prison. You meet Leo, who's an old, or what did he call himself? A consultant?
He's a consigliere. It's the
Yeah.
consigliere.
Consigliere.
Yeah.
Consigliere.
So he gets
whatever you pronounce that.
So
Don't mind our Italian.
So basically, when you come back from prison, he kind of you do a few missions and he kind of puts in a good word, and then you're in the family. You screw things up. You have to go kill a guy that you barely interacted with throughout the story, and then it ends, and that's pretty much it. And I was just like, it felt like there was more to it. It almost felt like, bringing back Russ's Godfather, theory or movies that he likes. It was like Mafia 2 was like, the Godfather 2 or the Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, version where it's like the middle section, right? Where there's no beginning, there's no end. It's just filler for the ending, which is coming in part 3, and the beginning, which happened in part 1.
2 is like Goodfellas, okay? Like 2 is like, well, I don't mean it like that. I mean, like, for storyline, in actuality, Mafia 2 is Godfather 3. I mean, if you want me to be honest, it's not even that good. I mean, Godfather 2 was amazing compared to that. But like you said, like let's put it this way. Without the tie-in, because we're saying that the story with 2 is a little bit better than 1, or at least most of us are. Without that tie-in, is the story really any better, or is it almost the same level?
I like the story in 2 better. I thought there was a lot more leeway in the way that you play the story. So I honestly thought the story in 2 was better than 1, just because of the Joe Barbaro, which is your buddy, and then, the way that they basically, because you don't really get made in the first one. You become a made man in the second one. You get to actually join a family, and then you end up killing the head of that family and moving, killing the head of one family, and then having to kill the head of your own family because you just screwed up and killed half the Chinese mafia gang in town, and so you have to they basically want retribution, and you have to do something to quell it. So I mean, the game ended kind of, in my opinion, a typical mafia style where, you go in and do the last job for the mob because you basically screwed up and have to make this right. And in the end, you thought that you were doing this to get this, and all out, in the end, I guess we could spoil it. In the end, you run into Joe while you're going to kill the other mob boss, and Joe, puts a gun to your head because he's going to protect his family, the mob boss, and Joe ends up going with you because obviously you're like freaking longtime childhood friends. You guys kill the mob boss, and then when you leave, Leo tells you, you guys are going to go party now because you did the thing, but basically they take Joe off and go put, you don't get to see any of it, but it's basically led to say that they're going to go put Joe, he's going to go sleep with the fishes, and you get to live.
Yeah, and that's basically how it ends. To me, it felt like a lot of this, I don't know, for me it felt like really slow with the story, right? It didn't, I wish you would have gotten into the mob a lot sooner and did a lot more mob missions. It seemed like you did a lot of just kind of missions that were more like just to get you into the family. And then once you get there, it seems like that experience with being a part of the Mafia family and being in the family kind of comes and goes quickly. I felt like there wasn't a lot of missions that really center around that whole aspect of you now in the mob. It was kind of a lot of the missions, a lot of the chapters are you just getting to that point where you're in the mob. And then once you're there, you screw things up, you got to go kill the last boss, and then it's over. And where I felt like 1 was like you started off in the family and you rose through the ranks, becoming the boss's main henchman or
you're his capo. You're his capo.
Right. So, and then, I think everything else in 1 kind of sucked. The gunplay and the driving and stuff. I think the story was really good because it had a beginning and it had an end. Where this one kind of, to me, I don't know, to me it felt like in Mafia 2, and it's not saying I didn't enjoy it, the story. I did. It just felt like there wasn't really a beginning and end. It just kind of like it was kind of like filler, like almost like a those episodes on Netflix or whatever where there's those episodes that don't make any sense and they just kind of fill in the time. And that's what it felt like to me. Like it was just a filler. Like it was kind of like it was a trilogy, kind of like like I said with the Star Wars. Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back is one of my favorites out of the original Star Wars trilogy. But Empire Strikes Back is a filler, right? It just fills the middle section.
Let's not talk there. Okay, let's
Well,
not
I mean,
go there.
I'm not saying a filler, but I mean like there's no beginning or end, right? I'm saying
no.
Like,
I want to see
because
this
the story
Star
began.
Wars fans.
The story began in A New Hope, and it ended in Return of the Jedi. So the middle part, what I'm saying is it's not like the whole story didn't matter, but what I'm saying is the story is just a continuation and not an ending, right? The Return of the Jedi has an end, and A New Hope has a beginning, whereas Empire Strikes Back is just the middle section, right? It's like the middle of the book, right? And there's no beginning or end, and that's how it made me feel with Mafia 2, whereas I feel like Mafia 3 is going to kind of, I know it's a new protagonist in Mafia 3, but it's going to kind of maybe hopefully talk about the character. I mean, because you don't see what happens to the main protagonist in 2, right? At the end, he goes away with Leo, like Pat said, and that's it. He drives off with Leo. What happens with him? Where's the end of his story? What happens to him after that? Did he just keep working for the mob and dies one day? Or, what goes on from there? And we don't get that. So it almost feels like Mafia 1, because they connect Mafia 1 and 2 with that one mission we were talking about, right? So then we have, okay, so these are connected. So it feels like Mafia 2 needs to have, or should have, even though it is set in Louisiana and not Chicago.
Well, see,
should have
that's why you got to play 3, Nick.
Right.
You have to play 3 to know what happens to Vito.
Right. You wouldn't stop at, you wouldn't stop at Empire Strikes Back and not play
I think we need to go back to the Star Wars analogy, because I want to see blood. This is funny as hell. You got Russ all mad. I can hear him back there chewing on his teeth.
For the sanctity of this podcast, we will not go into that. I understand what his principle is, but he would have been much better off using like Back to the Future or something like that as an example, because when you use a Star Wars fandom favorite number 1 movie of all movies as a filler movie example, it may rub some of us the wrong way. But it's okay. I understand what his analogy was, and I get it. It's basically
it was an analogy.
Yes,
Empire Strikes Back is my absolute favorite. It's my all-time. Like if someone were to say which Star Wars movie out of all 9 of them that you want to watch, Empire Strikes Back is the one I want to watch.
I will say that one thing. Yeah, I mean, back to the game. The one thing that kind of drove me mad on this one was basically they lead you to they basically tell you that Vito Scaletti becomes a made man, but at what level? They never tell you whether he's like he's like a Poe or what level they make him a made man. And that drove me nuts. I'm like, so what am I? Am I an underboss? What is his faction, basically his rank in the Mafia family? It just drove me nuts because I was just trying to figure out where he was at.
Well, that's one thing I'm saying too, is like, they didn't expand on that. From my perspective, he's nothing. He's an underling.
I mean, I would put him as probably the lowest rank, maybe like a soldado or maybe an associate. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
I don't think he was a capo. I don't honestly think, maybe he was an enforcer level. I don't know, but they never really tell you what level or rank he was. But if you want to know more what happens to him after Mafia 2, you have to play Mafia 3 because they do hint about a little bit of what happened to him. So, I mean, it is that way. It is a trilogy for that reason. It is just basically following through the timelines of the heirs because Mafia 3 takes over in the Bayou, and you play a different character, but you also get to find a little bit, if you pay attention, you find a little bit about what happens to the other people, some of them. So. Well,
I have to say the story was much better in this one, in my opinion, but I didn't think it was good enough to give it that much thought. I mean, it really didn't.
I don't know. I mean, I just thought it was kind of a kind of an interesting little story where you basically are, you end up getting in trouble as a kid, and then instead of going to jail, they sent you off to fight in the war, and then you got hurt, and you came back, and you got in trouble again, and you get sent to prison, and then you do the whole prison stint with Leo, and then you come back and you work with Joe some more, and then you get a made man, and I'll tell you what was Nick, you beat the game. There's one part in the game that I forgot about until I played it that made me so mad that I didn't have the forethought to do more with it. Was there a part in the game that made you mad, or that you basically was like, oh crap, I should have done this before this happened?
Not that I can think of. You have to tell me what it is. Okay. Maybe I'll think of it then.
Russ, Nick, Russ or Shane, did you guys have a part in the game where you were like, oh crap, this happened and now I'm hosed?
No, not really. I mean,
Russ?
Not that I can think of.
I'm trying to think. Like, I mean, I did not finish the game, but I got pretty far, and I'm trying to think, like, what didn't I go back to do?
Okay. So here's a hint. Did you make it to the part where your house got burnt down?
Yeah, it's like chapter 8, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact chapter. Well, I don't know about you guys, but when my house burnt down, I had $30,000.
In the house?
In the house. I was so mad. I was like, oh, I could have bought all these cars and all these clothes and all this crap, and my house burnt down with my $30,000, and I lost all of it. I was so mad.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that till now. The fact that until you just started talking about it, that yeah, before that happens, you could have spent all that money on clothing and upgrades for the cars and all that stuff.
Right? Yeah, because I was just like when the house when the because of the Irish, yeah, the Irish come, they're the ones that do it. They set your house on fire, and as soon as you jump out the window, then my money goes from like $32,000 to zero. And I'm like, what? What the heck? Would I have it stuffed in my mattress? You know?
Yeah, you didn't put it in a bank.
Right? But yeah, I was so mad. I was like, oh man, I could have bought all these upgrades for all these cars that are in my garage. I could have bought all the clothes and probably got some achievements. And then I was like, do I reload it?
The thing for me was like, you don't expect it to happen for one. But for me, I was like, oh yeah, I have all this money. Okay, cool. I'm going to wait till like I got a ton, and then I'm going to go out and buy all this stuff.
Right.
And that's, I think for most people, that's probably their mindset. And then the house gets burnt down, and you really don't recoup any of that money.
You never
for the rest of the game. Yeah.
No, I never got back up to that amount of money.
Yeah. It's it sucks that it happens. And yeah, I guess he had it under his mattress. He didn't put it in a bank like regular people, or a fireproof.
He was sleeping on it.
Vault or something.
Yeah, he was sleeping on it. Yeah, so that drove me a little bit nuts. I was like, oh, if I'd had the foresight, I wouldn't have went to bed with $30,000 in the bank. But I mean, I like the story better, but I guess that's each their own. Like I said, I felt the story was a little bit more engaging for me in this one, and then obviously the driving was much more enjoyable than the first one.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things. The shooting mechanics in one were tolerable to a point, but made much better in this one. But the driving from the first one, oh my God, I would rather walk in the first one than drive anywhere. It was so bad.
Right. Yeah. So it was. I thought the story was pretty good. Like I said, I liked the whole prison scene that teaches you how to fight, and then the going through, and there was nothing more satisfying than one of the guys you first meet. In my opinion, one of the more satisfying things in the game was one of the guys you first meet in the beginning of the game, and I don't know why I just blanked on his name. I had his name in my head, but he's the guy that I think he's the basically protector for Derek. Derek's
Derek's the guy on the docks.
Yeah, he's the head of the union workers.
Was his name Joe?
Oh, God,
I can't remember. But anyway, I can't remember Derek's the boss basically. Yep. But basically, whenever you find out that Derek basically threw your dad in the ocean to sleep with the fishes, his boss or enforcer, whatever he is, basically drowned your dad, and then he always talks so much smack through the whole game. When I got to plug him in the scene after when you go to try to quell the basically people who are refusing to work, and you get in a fight with them, it was great to just shoot him, because for some reason his body was the only one that stayed on the ground the entire time. After you killed everybody, I would come back to the docks, and that guy's still dead on the ground. But that
Yeah,
was hard to me.
It was
I'm
kind
still
of
trying to
weird
remember
that
that damn dude's name.
it's kind of weird that it was Steve, right? I think it was Steve, right? Steve.
Well, he kept saying right, Derek, and that's why I remember Derek. And it was like it was Derek Papalardo or whatever the heck his name is.
I think the other guy was Steve, but it was kind of weird because when you fought him, he was just on the dock as like a normal guy. You know, you just pop him and he's dead.
Right,
That
exactly.
was kind of strange, but
Right.
yeah, when you get in the warehouse and Derek's throwing Molotov cocktails down at you, that was kind of like, that was a little difficult. I ended up just chucking grenades up there because I had a whole bunch of grenades on me and just chuck grenades.
Oh, nice. That's cool. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, like I said, I don't remember what the guy's name was that he fought, but I thought that was just because he's just a jerk the whole time you're playing the game. Like he's just this I don't know how you would portray him, because there's the whole scene where you got to go down and the Irish gang guys basically burnt down your truck full of cigarettes. So you go extract some vengeance on them. And at the end of that scene where he's helping you take out all these greasers, he's talking about go see if the castor oil took effect, because he basically hasn't crapped in like a week or something. He's like the weird comic relief that's not really funny.
I don't know. Constipation's pretty funny.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, this was kind of, I don't know. I thought this one was a little bit more in depth, but that's just me. I like this one better than the first one, but liking it better than the first one's still not a huge thing. I still think they broke it with the definitive edition polish and upgrades. I think it was worse than Mafia 2 without being definitive. So the definitive edition, in my opinion, worse than Mafia 2.
Well, I think this is a pretty weak of definitive edition. I think there's much more that should have been and could have been done, just like the first one. I think it was a wasted opportunity to make those bad things better and make the great things greater.
I mean, they should have just left it alone and bundled it with the DLCs, the story, the 2 additional stories, or the 3 additional, the Betrayal, Jimmy's Vendetta, and Joe's Adventures. Yeah. They should have just left it and just said basically, hey, we didn't do anything to it. Maybe do some bug fixes rather than polishing, because I think the polishing is what broke it. But we threw in the 3 DLCs with it as part of the trilogy, because, you know, the trilogy came with Mafia Definitive Edition, Mafia 2 Definitive Edition, and I don't know if Mafia 3 is a Definitive Edition or not, but I can't see what they've done with that game. That game's not even 5 years old.
I think it is a definitive edition, but I think it's just all the DLC and stuff.
Okay, so that's probably what they should have done with 2, also, in my opinion.
Well, it's really confusing how they call it a remaster, and like we're playing a 2010, so that's what, Xbox One, or is that Xbox? It's Xbox One. So we're playing a 2010 Xbox One on a newer console, and yet there were like sluggish parts of the game, like while driving, like it was like trying to catch up with itself. I don't think that's performance errors on my Xbox. I think it's design issues within the game.
Well, I mean, Mafia 2 came out in 2010, which was PS3 and Xbox 360 time frame. So
okay, so 360.
I think it was a split, wasn't it?
No, it didn't come out. No, it was a 360.
Oh, that's right. No, that's right. You're right. But I thought they already came out with an edition for the one. But maybe that was just backwards or something.
I think that's just backwards.
Yeah, so my apologies. Yeah. I'm thinking Series X. I'm already ready for the new one next week. So that's my bad. What I was thinking was, yes, 360. It was a 360 game, and then they remaster it for the one, and it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, it should perform better. I should be very smooth within transitions, but there were moments when I'm playing that when I'm driving, it was like, okay, why didn't I'd have that sudden little jerk or that sudden little bit, because like literally the frame rate on it is just, I guess it would be the frame rate that's slowing down or something. It was odd to me for a game that came out in 2010 to have that kind of performance issue. I mean, we play games that are built for this generation console games, and we don't have those problems, and they're very much graphic intensive games.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think they busted it with this polish, because it's a broken, busted game, and it's been out now for a few months, so they should have had patches to fix all this, but no, wasn't. So, so basically, it's it's a busted game, and they should have fixed a bunch of stuff. But the definitive edition, in my opinion, should just been we bug fixed a bunch of stuff that's been bugs for years, and then we came out with we basically bundled the DLC with it.
Well, I'll agree with the what they should have done, but I didn't find all those technical issues that you called out. I wouldn't say the game was busted. It's typical glitchy.
It's not typical glitchy, in my opinion, for a game that's been out for what? This one came out before the Definitive Edition 1, which this one was in May, I think, is what I kind of remember. The Definitive Edition 2 was in May? Yeah, it was in May of this year is when they basically came out with the Definitive Edition for 2. I'm pretty sure that's when it was. We're in November, guys. All that stuff should have been fixed by now.
Well, I think right now we've got 7 days to the release, so I'm not even going to care about that now.
Well, now it's over for me. I don't care neither. I'm being forced to play this glitchy game. Now, Shane and Russ has to finish the game. We finished it, so that's a rule.
Oh, I'll finish it, but our next review I'm really into right now, so I may have to put that one in the burner.
Shane's going to be walking sideways with the next review because I'm going to stick my controller where the sun doesn't shine because I don't like that game. I don't like this kind of game.
Have you getting started yet?
I don't like this game.
And thanks for listening to It Tastes Different. Next week we skip a whole game because we've already got the reviews. No, I'm kidding. We'll
It's going to be called It Tastes Different for another reason because Shane's going to taste my controller.
It's going to fit different.
But no, I like this one better than the first one. But in my opinion, that's the way it should be. The game should evolve. But I guess I don't know. Nick really liked the first one better. What about you, Shane? Did you like this one or the first one better?
No, I definitely liked this one better in the overall period. I think everything was improved upon compared to the first one, from the gameplay to the story to the characters to the graphics to the kit and caboodle. It was a 360 of improvements, no pun intended. But it was there's still a lot that should have been taken care of that we talked about.
Right. Well, Nick, you said you liked the story better. That doesn't necessarily mean you like one better than two. Which did you like better? Like, if you were to score them overall, which would you say was better, one or two?
Two.
But you like the story in one. So the story wins in one for you, but everything else.
Everything else is two. Yeah.
And Russ, how about you? Which one did you feel like you liked better overall?
I hate to admit, agreeing with Nick, but I like the story in one. But two definitely plays better.
So, yeah, it's kind of split. That's interesting. Yeah, I like the story better in this one. But like I said, it is what I think, maybe because it's more fresh. I don't know. But the story in this one just had me a little bit more because it allowed what I've seen more freedom in gameplay than the other one did. But, that's why it's different flavors of gamers, right? Everybody's got their opinion on what was better. And based off of our likes, people kind of probably fit into the. People probably have more of a semblance to one of the four of us, so they would say, "Oh, I side with that guy mostly in those games, and so I would probably like this," So
yeah, most people would agree I'm right.
The last thing I kind of want to add to it that I really think about is that I try to put myself in these shoes. Number one, these games are older, okay, so they're older games, but then they put the remaster and remake tag on it. And with the evolution of games that we've had, the kind of choose your own path type of games that we've had, like, why? I know it would not cost that much money, especially with the price tag that they put on the definitive edition, to upgrade the games even more, like they completely did with 7. I'm not expecting that level. I'm not saying that level. I'm saying maybe if that's level 10. Maybe take these games to level 6, upgrade the graphics, do all that. But I'm so frustrated that in those times, like in 1 where we could have killed Frank, but we let him go. In this movie, or in this movie, I should say, in this game, having some more choices that really, I know we had some that mildly affected, but really affected the way that it went. I think that would have given us as gamers a little bit more to really enjoy in these two games. Like, do you want to be the forgiving mob guy, or do you want to be, Joe Pesci in Goodfellas? Like, who do you want to be? I think with this opportunity that they had, it would have been a much better product, and we would be sitting here talking a completely different way if they would have invoked a little bit of that within their remaster versus leaving it the way it is.
Well, I mean, yeah, I agree. And one, they could have done that because one was a remake, so they basically rebuilt the game from the ground up. So they reshot all the actors' voices, they redid voice acting and all that. So they could have done that. But on this one, all they did was polish it. They don't have any additional actors. They didn't do any additional voice or acting, so they really couldn't have changed the story, because if they did, they would have to bring back the voice actors and reshoot new scenes and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, I could see them definitely could have done that for one, and it would have it would have basically made that game vastly better, in my opinion, if you had choice, like you said, and you could decide, whether you're going to let Frank live or whatever, or, wait till he take off on the tarmac and blow the plane up or something. Just do something different, But yeah, I've already played 3, which is the next one in the thing. So I don't know if we're planning to review that one or not. Everybody did get 3. 3 felt, so we'll just, we'll see how it goes. This one felt like it was trying to be a little bit more Grand Theft Auto-ish, but kind of fell flat on its face. Whereas 1 felt like it was more of a linear story set in an open world. I don't know how to explain that, but I didn't feel like 1, there was much reason to go driving around or doing anything. At least with this one and 2, they had the clothing shops and the burger joints and the crap like that you can basically go to the auto bodies and pull your car in and get new plates if you're being tracked by the police, stuff like that. So there was a little bit more desire, I don't know if desire is the word, a little bit more incentive to drive around the map into different places. So, but yeah, I didn't feel that way in 1. So in 2, I felt like there was a little bit more incentive to explore the map.
Yeah, I think 3 will probably be up a little bit more people's, enjoyment areas, because it's set in more of a modern day time
that
period.
Will be to be seen. I'd like to see what you guys think of it, because I have my own opinions on it, and they're not usually very high.
Yeah, but you're picky. Nick's a masochist.
I'm only picky because
like Star Wars.
Because of the story and stuff like that, how it changed. So
yeah.
Give me some type of sword and let me slice some people up. I'm all about it.
So Russ wants to join the Chinese hatchet gang that's in Mafia 2. He wanted to be the one.
He's gonna love the next one then.
Negative Ghost Rider. Never mind. I'm not going to say it. We're not talking about that game now. I think overall, I mean, for this game, I think we are starting to get to that dead horse part, but like, I will give Mafia 3, I'll be open-minded about it. I'll look at it and try to be understanding with it. I think us as gamers too, I think the fact of doing a 1, 2, and 3 back to back to back also is affecting us a little bit. Whereas if we'd had that little break, maybe we could have that intrigue into it still. But, I want to try to say that, what, had I played this game in 2010, because this wasn't on my want list, I probably would have actually liked it quite a bit better than I did now in 2020, because of course I expect more from games now. But overall, it's definitely a more solid game than many that we've played in our time frame. G.I. Joe.
I mean, yep, this is a typical rags to riches to rags story.
American dream.
Yep. You come up from nothing. This little Italian immigrant that had nothing, and then you get all this money, and then you get your house burnt down, lose it all, and you're poor again. You go from having your own house to living in this dead kid's apartment.
Sounds like an average day.
All right?
This game is, like I said, it's better than 1 as far as everything else but the story. I think the story was better in 1 than in 2. But, if you went out and bought the trilogy like we did, give it a play. It's not bad. You're going to have, if you enjoyed Mafia 1, you're probably going to enjoy this one more. And, you got the trilogy, so why not?
Right, exactly. It's definitely worth the money. If you've never played the Mafia series, the Definitive Edition trilogy is worth the money. You get 3 three decent games, if not good games. I would say they're good. They're not great. They're not bad. They're decent, good games, and they're worth the playthrough. If you've never played them, they're definitely worth the playthrough because they're worth the experience, in my opinion. If I'd never played them, I might have a different view on them as I do now, but I played them back when they originally came out.
Yeah, that's a big difference between a game that you never tried 10 years ago and they bring it out. I'm going to give this one a try. Well, damn, I should have played it 10 years ago. It's pretty good. But when you played it 10 years ago and it's the same game, it really makes it hard to say, well, it's better than it was, but really it's not. It's the same damn game.
I mean, I don't have anything else to add to this. Do you, Russ, you got anything you want to add to this one?
No, I just said what I felt, and there at the end, and like Nick says, it's not a complete waste of money for the three, but to each his own, and good luck to those that get it.
Shane, you got anything you want to add?
Nope. I think I pretty much called out how I felt.
Nick?
No. I mean, pretty much like I said, or like you said, if you have the trilogy, definitely play all three of them. You bought it, so might as well. And if you don't, it's a good price for 3 games. So they're not great games. They're not like 10 out of 10s, but they're all right.
For the money, they're definitely worth it.
Yeah, for the money, they're worth it. So exactly. So yeah.
Yep. If you like action adventures and you like mobster/mafia style movies and games, it's definitely worth the play. So we appreciate everybody listening in this episode, and we hope to catch you in the next one.